20 gallons of jambalaya, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to show you how we got it done. So it was Next Generation Martial Arts grand opening at its new location in Thibodaux, Louisiana, and we decided it would be a great opportunity to put together a huge jambalaya to raise some money for a local cancer patient. So it was time to get this pot, hit it up! And what you see right there is the exact heat wave going on in Louisiana right now. So we put some oil down in this pot. You want a nice good layer of oil in the beginning of cooking in a big black iron pot. It helps things not stick in there in the first beginning drop of meat or what have you. So the first thing we dropped in was 24 pounds of cut up Boston butt pork. This is going to be one heavy jambalaya, ladies and gentlemen. No pork left behind. So I go ahead and kind of move this around to get as much of this meat as I can on the black iron itself. After it has sat there for a couple minutes, then I'll begin kind of moving it around. If you try to move it too quick, it will stick. Even with the oil in there, that meat hasn't lifted from the pot just yet, so you kind of want to wait a little bit, then start moving it around. And from here, I just begin to cook this pork down for like 30 minutes. It takes a good while for the pork because you want to get it tenderized. So you cook it down for 30 minutes, tossing it here and there, letting it brown up. So just to let you guys know, this jambalaya was sponsored by the Thibodaux Store. If you've not been to the Thibodaux Store, man, you need to head over there. They got all your Cajun cookware needs, man. All these pots, pans, the utensils you need to stir everything up. Get your food looking great. I'm telling you, hit up the Thibodaux Store, thibodauxstore.com, or even pierreportstore.com, and you can get your Cajun cooking needs. So after browning down the pork in the allotted time, I kind of push it to one side here, and then I'm going to add 24 pounds of boneless chicken thighs that have been seasoned with Pierre seasoning. So as I did with the pork, I begin to move the chicken around a little bit here just to get as much meat as I can touching the black iron. I'll even take some of the pork and kind of put it over the chicken so that way I can get some of the chicken under the pork. And then after it sits there for a little bit, you can start moving it around. It'll kind of come up from the pot. And then we just keep cooking this down, the chicken and pork together. The pork will get a little more tender and the chicken will cook beautifully. It doesn't take as long for the chicken to cook, so we probably go about 10-15 minutes here. So as you can see, after cooking down this chicken and pork for roughly 10 to 15 minutes, all the pink has been removed. And it's about this time when I want to get everything out of this pot. So I'll use a large slotted utensil here, scoop this chicken and pork, and then remove it to a separate pot, container, large bowl, whatever you have on hand. There was still a lot of moisture left in this pot, so I let some of it cook out a bit before adding my smoked sausage. And once I saw it dropped a little bit, then I added my smoked sausage to the pot. You know, even though the sausage is going to cook in with these juices, I'm okay with it. They'll still be able to brown down, and then they'll add even more flavor to this pot. So what we added was 24 pounds of smoked sausage. And we started getting that stirred in, moved around, and just kept browning it up on all sides. And let me tell you, man, people smell this sausage. When you are cooking sausage like this in a huge 20-gallon pot, them smells hit neighborhoods for miles and miles away. So I just keep tossing it around, man. Every once in a while, spread it out so that, you know, more of the sausage can hit some of that black iron. And then I toss it and just keep repeating this process for probably about 15 minutes. Then I remove the sausage from the pot into another bowl off on the side, you know, big pot, whatever you have on hand. You just scoop it out with a slotted utensil and put it off to the side. So this left a lot of grease in this pot. I knew I didn't want my jambalaya to be very greasy, so I went ahead and removed some of this grease. Except for that sausage. Had to put that in the pot. Now look, you don't want to remove all the grease. You do want to leave some of that grease in there because it is flavor. So I do have a thin layer there at the bottom, and I'm going to use that with my vegetables. But let me show you this right here, man. This is the Grunt in the pot. Man, look at all that browning that has formed in this pot. We're going to pull that up with our vegetables. So we start off with 40 diced onions. I say 40 to 50 diced onions, really, because you might have some that are small, but you want a lot of onions right here to help sweat out and pull up that Grunt in the pot. After the onions, we add 2 whole stalks of chopped celery, and then 20 chopped up green bell peppers. The Holy Trinity, ladies and gentlemen. So at this point, I gently move the top surface of these vegetables around, up the side walls. You know, I don't really go digging into the bottom just yet. I want that to sit, sweat out, and pull up some of that goodness on the bottom. After a few minutes, then we start digging into it, and as you can see, the color starts to protrude from this pot. Look how pretty that looks right there. And after a few more minutes, you can see it even better. So around this point, I knew it was time to add about a cup of some paya seasoning. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is 1 whole cup of paya seasoning that was measured out and put in this container. So next we add 40 beef bouillon cubes. Booyah! And then we blend that in. Just kind of toss that around, get that incorporated. And then we continue with the process of cooking these vegetables down. After cooking these down for about an hour, I knew it was time to add 1 cup of minced garlic. And you might have to scoop that in. So we cook the garlic down for like another 5 minutes, and then we begin adding the chicken stock. I had 24 32-ounce containers of chicken stock. We start off with a couple containers here and just pour along the side wall to break up anything that might still be stuck. But as you can see, everything was broken up and looking beautiful. So we added the meat at this point before we add the rest of the stock, because if you get too much stock in there and go pouring all this meat back in, it might splash all over the place. So get your meat in there first and then pour the rest of your stock. So we gave this a little toss here just to kind of build some flavor with that initial chicken stock that's in there. Get it all blended good, and then add the rest of the stock we have. It took a little minute here. I was doing 2 at a time, and then eventually I was like, you know what? I need to get 4 of these bad boys. After incorporating all the chicken stock, we add 1 cup of hot sauce and then 1 cup of browning sauce. And I don't care if you don't like that. It just adds a little color to the jambalaya. Calm down. It is about at this point you will add 20 chopped up bunches of green onions and then 20 pounds of rice. Now you can go with parboiled rice. This go round I went ahead with regular white long grain rice. Now watch out for this next part. Oh man. So look guys, a pot of this magnitude, you got to be very careful with the heat. What happened was the boiling was beginning at the bottom, but it hadn't reached the top. So when I had stuck that paddle in there, the things just spilt over. We eventually got it to a low boil, covered it up, and let it cook for 20 minutes. Meanwhile, the free Taekwondo class for our grand opening was being taught by Mr. Lee and Mr. Brady, and then afterward, Mr. Scotty Smith, who runs Next Generation Martial Arts, put on a free jiu-jitsu class. After the 20 minutes was up, I knew I was going to see a lot of liquid in this pot, but that's normal with a big jambalaya. This is when we do our first fluff. But I knew I had to be cautious here. I put my paddle in just a little bit, and I could tell things were wanting to boil over. But nonetheless, I needed to turn the pot off at this point anyway, so I did, and then I started to fluff this rice up. And as you do this, that liquid that's on the top starts kind of mixing in with all the rice, so then the rice can really start to soak up everything. But you also want to do this with a big pot of jambalaya so that that bottom portion doesn't overcook, burn, or stick to the bottom of this pot. And as you can see, it's starting to look more and more like jambalaya, but we still got to let this bad boy soak for another 20 minutes. So once we get all that rice fluffed, that's when I put that lid back on the top of this thing and let it sit for another 20 minutes. And this is what you get right here. A beautiful pot of jambalaya. Not to mention Mr. Scotty Smith smoked 6 Boston butt pork roasts, and Miss Naomi, his wife, did these homemade chocolate chip cookies. Also, we had these pecan praline cakes from That's So Sweet. Man, we had a mountain of good food. I had one of these and they were outstanding. We also had some lovely faces serving it up. To top it off, we had a couple people get promoted on this day. It's so awesome to see hard work pay off. Martial arts is an amazing brotherhood, but it's not just a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood. Look at this amazing woman right here get her purple belt in jiu-jitsu. That's incredible. So we want to thank Cake My Day, Mag Nondestructive Testing, Bourgeois Meat Market, Blacklist Martial Arts and Fitness, and of course all the people who support our academy, Next Generation Martial Arts. Together we raised over $2,600 to help one of our locals who's fighting cancer. and our continued thoughts and prayers will be with them.